a nuclear attack on Israel. It will be led by none other than Russia and Iran. Now, verse 1, Ezekiel 38. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus says the Lord, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and, verse 4, I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out with all your army, horses and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Now watch verse 5. The first nation listed in concert with Russia. Persia. Who's Persia? This is the ancient, thank you. Let's just close in prayer. You guys know all this. Iran is not Arab. Iranians are Persians. They do not speak Arabic. They speak Farsi. They are Muslim, but they are not Arabs. Persia, listed by their ancient name, is speaking of Iran. So, Persia, or Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya are with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all its troops, the house of Togarmah from the far north and all its troops. Many people are with you. Prepare yourself and be ready, you and all your companies that are gathered about you, and be a guard for them. I know that's a terrible place to stop. Perhaps we'll look at more of this prophecy in subsequent weeks, Lord willing. Suffice it to say, in all my years of both studying and teaching Bible prophecy, I believe that we are now very close to this prophecy finding its fulfillment. We are seeing everything beginning to come to pass exactly as God said it would. Just in this last week, we celebrated, maybe commemorated would be a better word, the 8-year anniversary of the Islamic terrorist attack on the United States of America on September 11th. Just in the last 8 years, there have been what I believe are astonishing geopolitical developments. Again, everything is moving very quickly. I was blown away this last week when I learned that Netanyahu conspicuously snuck out of Israel and went somewhere. I'm watching Fox News. I'm having my morning coffee. It's a morning ritual. It's a custom in my country. But anyway, I'm in disbelief. I'm listening to them talk about how that it was said that he was visiting military installations. He was not visiting military installations. He went to Russia. He went to Russia? Yeah. Fox News, this was actually just yesterday. Missing Netanyahu made secret trip to Russia. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a secret trip to Russia, a deputy prime minister confirmed on Saturday, but declined to give specific information on the mission. Israel has expressed concern in the past over the possible sale of air defense missiles from Russia to Iran. Now, let me establish something here before we move on. Russia and Iran have a mutual defense treaty. Putin and Ahmadinejad are very chummy, and they are together with each other pursuing nuclear ambitions and have in their sights designs on one nation, and that is the nation Israel. Ahmadinejad has a sleeping disorder. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. You probably won't hear it on the news. He can't sleep at night because, see, he cannot rest until he attempts to wipe Israel off the map so that she is a nation no more, which, by the way, is another prophecy. Actually, more than one prophecy, not the least of which is the prophetic psalm in Psalm 83. But be that as it may, Putin, by the way, Putin still is in control of, I just want you to know that. I'm sure you already know that, but it is the fact of the matter. Now, the article goes on to say the anti-aircraft missiles could potentially protect Iran nuclear facilities if Israel were to launch airstrikes. Let me just say this parenthetically. I think Iran is more afraid of Israel than Israel is afraid of Iran, as well it should be. And the article goes on to really describe that. Israeli reporters had called Netanyahu's office last Monday to inquire about the prime minister's whereabouts and were told by his office that he was on a military trip, visiting a security installation in Israel. Then, on Wednesday, Israeli newspaper Yedioth Ahronoth reported that Netanyahu had, in fact, flown secretly to Moscow to discuss Israel's concern over the possible sale of Russian anti-aircraft missiles to Iran. Reports of the Moscow visit came just after the interception of a cargo ship off West Africa last month by Russian warships. Media reports denied by Russia stated that the cargo ship, the Arctic Sea, was carrying S-300 missiles to Iran and that they had been detected by Israel. It's just really a matter of when and not if. This from the Debka file again yesterday. U.S. submission to Iran's evasions spurs international pressure against Israeli military strike. Thursday, the 10th, Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin warned against the use of force or new sanctions against Iran. Here they're sticking up for and protesting any sanctions against Iran. The toughest caution Israel has heard so far. Neither course will solve the problem, said the Russian leader. The caution from Moscow followed frantic consultations in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv in the last week for a decision on whether Israel should report to its military option for preempting the rise of a nuclear-armed Iran already on the threshold, according to U.S. intelligence agencies. Our Moscow sources say the Russians may be expected to keep up their verbal pressure on Jerusalem. Putin explained his objections to military action as, listen to this, Russia has no reason to doubt that Iran's nuclear program is purely peaceful. Oh, really? That's not what my Bible says. My Bible, Mr. Putin, with all due respect, says that you, with Iran, will have a nuclear weapon and you will launch a strike and an attack against Israel. That's what my Bible says. And what my Bible says is God's way of saying, I have said it, and that settles it. And it's just a matter now of when, not if it happens. The Wall Street Journal on Friday had this article, Russia says no to Iran nuclear sanctions. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made it clear Thursday that Moscow wouldn't back any new rounds of tough sanctions against Iran in the United Nations Security Council, and he dismissed a U.S. timetable for securing progress from Iran on ending its nuclear fuel program. Mr. Lavrov's comments also came amid a political storm in Israel over the disclosure that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had secretly traveled to Moscow earlier this week. Israeli media immediately speculated he was there to lobby against Russian sales of anti-aircraft arms to Iran that would hamper any Israeli strike. Here's how I see it. There are two questions on the international table. The first is Netanyahu preparing Israel for a preemptive strike against Iran? I happen to believe yes. The second question is, does Iran, vis-a-vis Russia, now have the nuclear capability to attack Israel? The answer, I believe, is yes. Some of the intelligence that's coming out now, and you're even hearing it in the news, is that they already have the bomb, as it's called. They already have the nuclear capability to launch this nuclear attack, and in so doing, fulfill what the Bible